Thank you all. I hope you all had a great day. Yeah. Indicative of positivity, which we love to see. Thank you. I'm here to introduce our keynote address. And I just want to thank you for joining us today. It really is a day that celebrates how education transforms passion into purpose and how what we learn becomes what we make possible. It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Kevin Chu, Executive Director of the Vermont Future Project, and a true example of making a difference right here in Vermont. Kevin also serves on the New England Community Development Advisory Council, where he helps guide conversations about the future of our regional economy and the communities that drive that. A graduate of Middlebury College, Kevin studied the environment and education and competed in track and field, blended curiosity, discipline, and heart from the start. Before leading the Vermont Future Project, he worked at the University of Vermont, where he did academic advising, communications, community engagement, economic development, and strategic planning. And I bet always building bridges between learning and opportunity. In 2023, Kevin was honored as Champaign College's Distinguished Citizen and recognized as an English diplomat by the Vermont Council on World Affairs for his leadership and advocacy for Vermont futures. I also believe Kevin is being recognized today as one of Vermont business rising stars and is making a stop here before going to that later tonight. Kevin often says that education doesn't just shape what we do, it shapes what we make possible for ourselves, our families, and our communities. He reminds us that we can all make meaning, make things, and make a difference. Please join me in welcoming a passionate leader in helping Vermont momentum and build its best future. Kevin Chu.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jess. And she'll be queuing up some slides. I'll be referencing a few things on the screen as we go along here. But before we get started, let's just give a big round of applause and thank you to the folks that made this day possible. We definitely, Jess, I think about both here and how the show works. What a beautiful space, what an asset for the community here in Rutland. And the food was wonderful, right? I'm going to start with a question. What do you make? What do you make? It seems like a simple, innocent question, right? It's a question that's often answered in dollars. What do you make? But what if we think more expansively? As Jess said, I try to make meaning, I make things. Sometimes I make trouble. only good trouble, of course. I always try to make a difference. Education holds the transformative power to make the most of potential. Shapes not just who we are and what we do, but what we make possible for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Your future, our future, is what we make of it. Today, I try to make data cool. I try. And then I use that data to help Vermonters believe in a vision for a more affordable and abundant future for our state. I make recommendations for how we can get there. And through it all, I also make time. I make time to give back to the next generation, to make sure that you know about the opportunities that are here in Vermont and make you feel inspired to at least give Vermont a chance. So as a kid, I was interested in video games and sports. That doesn't make me special or unique, right? I share that because I very much feel like a normal person. For all the students who are listening right now, your coursework, your major, your GPA, those don't define you. They don't define what you can become. Don't get me wrong, good grades can help. But your values and your approach to life are just as important as those other methods. In high school, I gravitated towards things like science and technology. I was curious about the way that the world works. I wanted to strive for continuous improvement of myself and the place around me. Then when I went on to college, I studied the environment and education at Middlebury College. was because I wanted to contribute to sustainable communities and mentor the next generation. So all those things I just shared, those are still true, but I found a different path forward. Now I work in community economic development. It's not something that I actually grew up thinking much about. I didn't think I'd be leading statewide conversations as the executive director of the Vermont Futures Project. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever envision that I'd be asked to serve on the boards of anchor institutions like the University of Vermont Medical Center, Champlain College, or the state of Vermont, or even the Federal Reserve Bank of Vermont. Actually, as a kid, I didn't even know what many of these things were. But that's exactly where I am today. How did I get here? I ask myself that a lot. It wasn't an economics class, in all transparency. I actually never took an econ class in college. It wasn't as valedictorian. It's because I care about Vermont. Right? You'll see on the screen, caring is a career plan. I care about Vermont, and I pursued career opportunities to give back to a state that has given me and given my family so much over the years. I knew what I wanted to say yes to. Right? That's an important thing to define for yourself. I think we get really good at knowing what we want to say no to. You should have a vision for what you want to say yes to as well. So I'll continue to let this guide what I do and who I become. And I want you to ask yourself, what matters to you? What do you care about? Caring is my career plan, but I had to share why I made this my strategy, why it's important to me. And it's because Vermont cared about my family. That's me there in the middle, the troublemaking middle child in the purple. Again, only good trouble. I say I'm the troublemaking middle child because my mom had worked at the University of Vermont for many, many years as a janitor, tough physical labor. And one of her benefits as an employee was her kids could go to UVM tuition free. And I took out student loans to go to Middlebury College. That was a fun conversation. Learned a good lesson in personal finance early in my life. Good trouble. My parents immigrated from Southeast China in 1986. Landed in Vermont of all places because I have an aunt that married an American, and they happen to have a home in Shelburne, Vermont. That was the one social connection that my parents had to this entire country. So I feel very lucky to call Vermont home because it could have been anywhere. They made a brave decision in their early 20s to leave behind everything and everyone they knew to come to a new country where, again, we had one social connection. Neither of them spoke English when they arrived. Neither of them had a college degree. But they took that brave leap of faith in pursuit of their American dream, pursuit of economic opportunity. And I'm happy to share that they found it here in Vermont. They found their American dream. They made their Vermont dream. They were able to buy a home, raise 3 boys, put them through college. And was any of that easy? Hell no. They worked their asses off to make it happen. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say that here, but I am forever grateful for what they did. So I'm going to read this phrase on the screen. You're going to be okay. You have an education. Say it one more time. You're going to be okay. You have an education. I just want to say that cancer sucks. Raise your hand if you personally or someone that you've loved has been impacted in some way by cancer. A lot of folks think. My dad passed away from liver cancer when I was just 9 years old. He's the one that got me into sports, and the connections that I made opened so many doors for me. The teammates that I had in those teams, they became lifelong friends. Coaches became mentors for me, and it taught me the concept of family can extend beyond the one that you're born into. there were so many parents that would just give me rides to practices and to games and then back home again, and they never asked for anything in return. They just treated me like family. My mom, she's the one that taught me the importance of education and lifelong learning. There's a picture here on the screen of my mom and a homework sheet where she would practice her English. She took classes in addition to working multiple jobs after my dad passed away. She worked hard to make ends meet, and there were difficult times. I grew up in poverty, but I had a model for success. My mom, she never stopped modeling what the habits of success looked like. Right? She'd come home, we'd sit at the dinner table together. I'd help her with her homework, and then she'd tell me to eat my vegetables. This picture is one that I come back to often when things feel hard for me, because it reminds me that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that it is worth it. And that the work that we put in today, we might not see the benefits of it right away, but it will benefit not just you, it'll benefit the people around you. People are watching. People care about you. And how you act has these ripple effects that may not even show up for 5, 10, 15 years. My mom was diagnosed with cancer shortly after I graduated from college. And I spent 2 years taking care of her. She took care of me for 24 before that. It's the least I could do in return. But it was the most important 2 years of my life. And I learned so much through that process. Before she passed away, I remember vividly this conversation that we had where she said to me that I'd be okay. She said, Kevin, you will be okay. You have an education. You'll be okay. You have an education. I was scared. She wasn't. I was scared because I was going to be in my mid-20s with no parents trying to figure out this crazy world. But she knew that I had the skills to figure things out, no matter how uncertain the world got. It's taught me to see uncertainty as opportunity in disguise. Right? If someone said to me today that they knew exactly where I'd be and what I'd be doing in 5 years, actually, I'd be way more scared of that. So embrace uncertainty. Uncertainty is opportunity in disguise. And it was also a good lesson that more often than not, Mom is right. So you will face hurdles in your life. I want to be upfront about that. It's how you choose to approach them that really makes a difference. I was a hurdler in college, and if you can't tell them where you're sitting or standing, I actually have pretty short legs. I have a 30-inch inseam, and college hurdles are 42 inches. Right? So often I would actually hit those hurdles, and it was what I chose to do after I hit them that made a difference. I made a psychological shift from thinking of hurdles as barriers, thinking of them as targets to attack. Right? We hear this metaphor a lot in our lives. Hurdles are often used as a metaphor for barriers that we have to face and navigate or get over, but sometimes it's okay to charge forward and go through them too. I've learned a lot of lessons about myself through sports, and it has helped me dramatically to learn how to deal with adversity and setbacks, whether that's in my personal life, losing family, or whether that's in my professional life. We've heard a theme today that mistakes happen. We have to learn from them. Sports also taught me about teamwork and goal setting. I can't say that I'd be here if it were just up to me. But there were so many people that helped me along the way. The accomplishments that I've been able to achieve are not solely mine. I learned that definitely playing soccer, where I could have the best game in the world, and if the team didn't perform well, we wouldn't win. So it built a sense of shared fate. That's part of what inspires me to do community economic development. Community is that we're all in this together. Yes, that's me from a much younger time when I could jump a lot higher. But I will also want to share that sports taught me to see the big picture. I played as a defender in soccer, and to be effective in that position, what was happening off of the ball was just as important as where the ball was. Always had to scan and read what was happening. And in this world that we live in, there's a lot of competition for your attention, right? You're being asked to follow the ball. Take the time to take a step back, see the big picture, because things that are happening away from where the play is, again, are just as important. So I carry these lessons from sports into my professional life. And here's my pitch. This is the work of the Vermont Futures Project now. Vermont needs more people. More people need Vermont. What do I mean by that? Well, the Futures Project launched an economic action plan earlier this year in January. And set an ambitious target to grow Vermont 802,000 people by 2035. As I say that, I'm sure many of you have some reactions and thoughts to it. And we'll go into some of the details of it, but I'll just point out that in this picture here, that was from the day of the solar eclipse, where we had an estimated over 150,000 visitors to the state of Vermont. It was a magic day. But we had over 800,000 people in the state of Vermont that day, and it didn't break. We're still here. So this goal, it's a data-informed target, again, to make Vermont more affordable and abundant. And I'll cover some of the key points. Vermont is an aging state. You heard this in the treasurer's remarks this morning. We're the third oldest state by median age. Far more people are retiring each year than the number of people who are entering the workforce. So when we take a look at the balance of retirements versus how many high school and college grads we're retaining, we see a growing workforce gap. But what does this mean for the young people in the room who might be thinking about building a career, building a life here? It means that you are wanted, you are needed. This works to your advantage. When we take a look at the Vermont labor market, there are 2 open jobs right now for every 1 job seeker. Say that one more time, 2 open jobs for every 1 job seeker. The national ratio is about 1 to 1. And then in some competitive labor markets, especially around large metropolitan hubs, there are a lot more people looking for work than work available. That's, in my opinion, one of the reasons why you should give Vermont a chance. The odds are in your favor at the job seeker. It also means that there's a community here that's ready to support your growth. You have access to career advancement and mobility. The treasurer talked about folks who are retiring, who are business owners, who are thinking about succession planning. What does the next generation of that business look like? Folks are retiring from senior positions, so there's that pathway for you to grow beyond entry level. It's another reason to give Vermont a chance. I also think that long-term demand for Vermont will increase, and you're already here, so take advantage of that head start. What do I mean when I say demand for Vermont will increase? There are factors that may compel people to think, I want to move to Vermont. I've been working with a rural geographer at UVM to track some of the reasons why people move to Vermont. Climate is being cited increasingly as a reason why someone might choose Vermont or the Northeast. Doesn't mean we won't be impacted by climate change, but on a relative basis, this region is set up well to thrive moving into the future. These are all factors, again, that may make the future in Vermont more competitive, more desirable. Use your head start to your advantage. You're here, you're making connections in the community. That's a really, really good starting point. I also see Vermont as a leading indicator. Economic term here. What do I mean by that? So I mentioned we're one of the oldest states by median age, but when we take a look at US data, demographic data, the rest of the country is also starting to get older. Fertility rates are going down around the country, and Vermont's just out in front of the pack. So what's happening here in terms of demographics, the impact on our labor market, the impact on the economy, those are things that will start to show up in other parts of the country. But it means that we here in Vermont have an opportunity to be a leader. We'll either be a leader for what to do or a leader for what not to do. One of those things will happen though, because time only works in one direction, and we need talented young people to contribute to developing solutions here. And if you can do that here, again, because this is a trend happening nationally, you'll be well set up to succeed anywhere you go. Build the skills here, and they're transferable to anywhere you go. So I'm truly honored today for this opportunity to share my story. Now you see a couple of silly photos up on the screen. I believe in honesty and transparency. And my honest moment right now is that there are days when this still feels surreal to me. The picture on the left is a Halloween costume from last year, where I was pretending to be something I'm not, which is a NIMBY. Not in my backyard. I want more houses and I want more people here. And I think that there are stories we tell, like who gets to call themselves a Vermonter, that can feel exclusive at times. To me, anyone that wants to be here and meaningfully contribute should be able to call themselves a Vermonter. We shouldn't have to pretend to be something that we're told we're not. Sometimes putting on a suit feels like a Halloween costume, like pretending to be something I'm not. Because there are days when I express myself in different ways, I dress different. But I keep showing up, right? I keep trying to make data cool, trying. But then I take a step back, and it's helpful to remember that everyone was once something else before they became what they are today. And that's the power of education, isn't it? It closes the gap between who you are and who you want to become. Education is additive. It can give you new skills, can give you new knowledge, experiences, and connections. And it doesn't have to change your core values. Similarly, we can add more people to Vermont without compromising on what we already have. Growth and development strengthens our communities, right? We often hear those words in a personal context, personal growth, professional development, and it's always celebrated. And let's extend that same positive sentiment to a community level as well. So stay true to yourself, your values, have some fun along the way. And I'll give you a quick recap of the points from today. You can make a difference while making a living. You can do it here in Vermont. Caring is a career plan. The world might feel uncertain at times, but uncertainty is opportunity in disguise. You're going to be okay if you have an education. Hurdles are targets, not barriers. Keep on going, get after the next one. Vermont needs more people. More people need Vermont. And I'll wrap up by sharing the motto that I live by, which is 4 simple words: move forward, give back. My name is Kevin Chu. This is my story so far, but the exciting part is there's still more chapters to write. Thank you for your time. We'll open it up to questions.
Any question?
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on the eclipse. And just curiosity, thinking of Killington here in the backyard, you have any idea of what Vermont's peak population is during ski season? We have a greater influx seasonally. Given that some people may go to Florida.
Yeah, I don't actually know off the top of my head what the peak capacity is during ski season, but I imagine that it's actually quite high. I also, when I'm thinking about the eclipse, one of the things I looked back to was what are some other big events that happened in Vermont? And if we think about ski season, if we think about like concerts or other events, there are these moments when the population within Vermont temporarily does go well beyond where we are now. And those are often times that are celebrated. People look back on it with fond memories. And that vitality that I felt on the day of the eclipse, that's something that I want to feel on a more regular basis.
I like how you mentioned that you think we can add more people to the MADMAL still keeping the things we appreciate about it. Do you have ideas for ways we can maintain our community and sense of closeness while still increasing our population?
I do, yes. So one of the research studies I did in developing this economic plan was to take a look at what growth means at a very local scale. So I did a town by town analysis of current population in a town compared to its historical peak. Some towns right now are at their historical peak because they've been growing. Some towns have actually lost population, right? So when we use this word maintain or sustain community, sometimes growth is part of that sustaining. It's to sustain the infrastructure that's already in place. If a town used to have 5,000 people and it only has 3,000 people now, there may have been buildings and roads and infrastructure put in place prior that we still need to maintain, right? So growth in that community that has depopulated might just be to get back to what was, right, to sustain. So if we were to just play out a thought experiment and ask, what if we restored every town in Vermont that has lost population back up to its historical peak? That alone would add 70,000 people to the state of Vermont. And that's just rural revitalization. I guess it's almost halfway to 802.
Is there a moment in your career that made you realize, or was a turning point for you where you're like, wow, I'm really making a difference?
It was right after college, actually. It didn't take long. I had the privilege of teaching 9th grade earth science. I did my student teaching at Middlebury Union High School. And it was a really interesting student population where some kids in my classroom were kids of college professors. Other kids grew up on family farms in Bridport or nearby towns, not in Middlebury. I had a lot of fun with those farm boys. We caused good trouble, definitely. But there was a period during the semester when I was trying to teach them earth science, but they really wanted to focus on other things. So I said, you know what? Maybe what is in the curriculum as written isn't the most important thing in these kids' lives. Maybe we just need to find some common ground and develop some core skills of learning and instill a growth mindset. So we took a break from the earth science and I put together a 1-week unit where I just asked each student to name something that they wanted to get better at. Something, anything, literally anything. I had one kid say, I want to get better at Call of Duty. I said, okay, let's design a project. Another kid wanted to get better at using power tools. Okay, let's design a project around that. So then they were able to pursue a passion they had in that moment, record the process, and then demonstrate the results at the end of that 1 week. Right, so for Call of Duty, for example, I asked the student to apply some statistical knowledge, track kill to death ratio within the game, draw the maps within the game so that he'd start to have an advantage if he was playing on a map and knows what's around the corner. And then those skills came up again later in the semester in earth science. And he had already demonstrated to me that he knew those skills. Or the kid that wanted to get better at power tools and built a bench in his dad's workshop. I don't think we would have gotten anywhere if I just kept pushing the earth science piece. And those kids at the end of the semester said, thank you for believing in me. Wes, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, very astute saying, you know, Vermont is competitive right now. It is the place to be. We have a lot of people moving in from out of state. And I think one of the challenges that young people are going to face at this point is that people who are coming here have, you know, more financial means than you here, consequently driving up the cost of living in the state. So what is your program doing to ensure that people who do live here and want to stay here already can, you know, compete with that very drastic increase in cost of living? Yes, a competitive job market.
Yeah, so our economic action plan is centered around two pillars: people. We need more of them, right, in places, looking at housing. Because you're right, if there are more people moving to the state and we don't increase the available housing stock, it's going to create affordability pressures. A phrase that I hear all over the state, actually all over the country, is housing is a human right. Raise your hand if you've heard that phrase said before. Housing is a human right. If housing is a human right, then it should be right to build housing. One of the challenges we face in Vermont is sometimes it's actually really difficult and in some cases even illegal to build more housing. So our work in a data-informed way starts to highlight all the different components that go into building housing, what adds to time and cost, what are some of the processes or policies in place that are adding to the affordability challenge, and just asking ourselves, okay, if we've set an ambitious long-term target, do the conditions today allow us to get there? If not, that's an opportunity for meaningful change. Demand for Vermont is inherently a good thing. People moving here, adding to the tax base, becoming employees at our local businesses that are struggling to hire, that's a good thing. But we need places for people to live, not only people who are moving here, but people who want to stay. I often think about the housing market kind of like a game of musical chairs. Now, let's pretend for a moment that we were to play that game in this very room. It would be kind of boring because when the music stops, there are more chairs here than people, so everyone would be able to find a seat. That, to me, is what I want to see in the housing market, a very boring game of musical chairs where anyone who wants to be able to find a home can find one. But right now, the housing scarcity, the lack of new construction over the decades, we've seen a significant deceleration in new housing starts. That is what's causing the affordability crisis. So in order to address it, we first need to make it easier and legal to build housing. And then from there, there's a whole sort of ecosystem of other things that we need to put into place, whether it's increasing the availability of folks in the trades and construction. We also need to figure out, I often paint the picture through 5 L's of building homes: land, labor, lumber, lending, and laws. Right. So the plan addresses all 5 of those. And I'd be happy to speak with you more about that afterwards if you'd like.
Yeah, very powerful personal story, so thank you for that. I'm thinking about what your mother said about you'll be okay, you have an education. I was thinking about that, having an Asian mother pass away, I've heard that 1,000 times. But I guess what I want to think about is if you could sort of continue her what she said, that you have an education, and say, and because I think what she said what she said, but I think what she meant, probably my interpretation is, you'll be okay, you have an education, you're also wise, smart, you'll figure it out. It seems to be what I'd say. So if you take the word you have an education now in 2025, I don't think that all education is the same, clearly. Degrees. So what does education mean in 2025, particularly for not necessarily for people that are over 40, but the younger people around us, right? Yeah. What does education be in 2025, if I want to truly implement all the things you're saying, because what I'm sensing, we're going to get this tectonic shift. What is meant to be educated? What is degree work? Sharpens the trade. So I'm not trying to complicate things, but in a way, but I think particularly for young people who are getting all this conflicting a lot of time messages, right?
Yeah.
Why do we need to write it? Let's use ChatGPT. I mean, you can see all you want, but they do what they do. And so with them as an audience, finish that off for me. You have an education and in what? Like, what do you do with it? How do you gain wisdom?
Yeah, great question. I mentioned that one of the ways that my mom imparted the importance of education on me was the way that she modeled learning. That's why I shared that picture of that worksheet. And when she said to me, "You have an education," I think that what she was communicating to me was that she saw that I had embraced the value of learning. Right. There are different ways to define what is an education. Is it a high school diploma? Is it an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's? Those are kind of arbitrary measures. Because at the same time, we also tell students all the time, learning is a lifelong process. But please graduate in 4 years. It gets along the way. It doesn't end. Education doesn't end when you finish school and get that diploma and walk across the stage. You still have to keep learning. Some of the skills that I use on a day-to-day basis are ones that I jokingly say to my friends that I learned at the University of YouTube. I'm redoing the floors in my house right now. I did not learn that at middle grade college. I proudly work on my cars. I change the brakes, change the oil. I've gotten in the habit of doing a lot of maintenance work, which I'm, again, proud of. I did not learn in college, but I wanted to learn those skills and sought out experiences that allowed me to gain those skills. So if I were to finish that thought and say you have an education, it's you have the habits and the desire to continue learning, to be curious, and it doesn't end, right? But you have to have that habit in place to adapt to a changing world. Yes, AI is the hot topic right now, but there's going to be another one, another hot topic in 10 years. We don't even know what the letters will be for it. But when it shows up, be willing to try it out. Be willing to give it a chance to learn how to use new tools towards better means. I have this discussion with my wife all the time because she's kind of adverse to, she's averse to new technology that scares her. And I'm like, AI today is the worst it'll ever be. It's going to keep evolving. It's going to keep getting better. And we need people to use it towards good ends. So that would be my sort of words of wisdom when it comes to education is don't define an endpoint by some arbitrary measure, but embrace the idea that having an education means that you're willing and continuing to learn.
Are there any public servants or leaders that you particularly look up to at this moment that you'd be willing to share? And why?
That's a very good question. I'm very inspired by Treasurer Paycheck. Maybe that's because him and I have been at the same events. He's seen me speak probably 10 times in the past 3 months, and I've seen him speak. But I think that he brings a level of authenticity to the work that inspires me. I find a lot of my leadership inspiration actually from the sports world of coaching in particular. That's one of the hats I wear. I do some part-time coaching at Middlebury College for the track and field team. Some of my idols in that space, Greg Popovich, who is no longer coaching the San Antonio Spurs. He unfortunately had a stroke last year and was forced to step away from coaching. But he, to me, is someone who models what that education process looks like of continuously trying to learn. And he held his players accountable to higher standards than just being good at basketball. He would get his players together to engage in discussions about geopolitical tensions because he wanted them to be good citizens of this country and not just good basketball players. So I've taken a lot of lessons from the way that he had built a career as a coach, and not just a basketball coach, but a coach, a mentor. And I try to apply that to what I do in my own coaching. I don't just teach long jump, triple jump, and high jump. I try to pass on life lessons that'll serve the student athletes that I work with well beyond their time at Middlebury.
Thank you.
Hi, John.
Hi. So you've done all this great work here. And all the day and whatnot. Help Vermont move forward. You're clearly here. What's next? Is something else you're looking to investigate more depth to complement the work?
Yeah, great question. The research project that's taking up a lot of my time right now is building a competitiveness dashboard. And what I mean by that is the work so far has helped to quantify what's happening in Vermont, but we as a state are operating in competition with other states in the region, other states around the country, part of a global economy, and I'm quantifying our performance relative to peer states, relative to the region, relative to the US. Because I think knowing those relative metrics can also help to inform the policy decisions we make to position Vermont to be more competitive, to give people more reasons to say yes to Vermont, to give businesses more reasons to say yes to Vermont. And I'm hoping to launch that by the end of this year ahead of the legislative session.
Thank you.
So we'll be in touch.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Any questions?
No.
Well, I think that's my cue. Maybe it's me.